come on in. My name is Larry Thomas. I'm the Chief Clerk for Cumberland County. And we have a full agenda tonight, so I want to get more brief remarks out of the way so we can get rolling here. Why are we here? I came to Cumberland County in August 2013 and arrived in the middle of two great debates. One was about the coroner's budget, and the other one was about the county's library tax. It seemed that the coroner was ordering too many autopsies and outstripping his budget. That we've solved relatively soon. It was very interesting. But the debate and the exchange on the county library tax was much more complicated and much more protracted. There were a lot of strong opinions on both sides, dedicated advocates and determined skeptics. And people had adopted positions and pretty much dug in on both sides of the issue. There was a lot of heat, a lot of smoke, but not a lot of light. I started to talk to the library folks, and I realized there was a whole lot about libraries that I did not know. And I also realized that there were some things about the county government that the library people might not be as aware of in terms of our scope of responsibility. This person to my left, my partner in crime, being the very good librarian that she was trained to do, said, "Here, kid, read this stuff." And I don't know if she thought I was actually going to read all of those 12 journal articles, but I did. And just like when a librarian tells you what to do, you should go along with it. Sure enough, I got a good outcome. And what did I learn from all that reading that Janelle turned me on to? I learned that libraries were changing at a very high rate of speed, given all the new technology and the changing needs of customers for information exchange. I learned that funding was an issue everywhere, not just in Cumberland County. I also learned there was a whole lot of good ideas out there and new approaches that people were trying, some that worked, some that didn't work so well. And there was beginning to be a gathering of data so that people would know and have some basis to make decisions. And there was a lot of grappling with the idea of what the future of libraries held. At that point, I kind of wished that we had that device that they use in Men in Black, where they point the pen at you and they look at this, and the light bulb goes off, and you forget everything, so that we could start anew and learn from each other and learn from the experts of others, so that we could come up with an informed opinion rather than simply a stand one way or the other. So what are our ultimate goals here? Our ultimate goals is to build consensus on the short term in terms of how is the library going to maintain itself and its level of services over the next couple of years in what will, in all likelihood, be an environment where there will not be an increase in the library tax. But then I think more importantly, to build a consensus on the role and the importance of the library within our communities to inform future funding decisions and library strategy in the future. We have a great bunch of panelists here. I think in putting together this panel, we didn't want to bring in the same old faces. And by old, I mean, I'm up in that range too. I mean, old familiar faces, okay? I always do. I always do. We wanted to bring in experts. We wanted to bring experts, some of them familiar with our community, some of them from outside the community, but people who had built a reputation either by the research they've done or the thinking they've done or the experimentation they've done on these very same issues, and learn from them. And that, I think, is the key word for tonight and for the rest of our series. Tonight we have people who represent some of the best organizations working within our community, because the one big thing in all this debate was, well, what does the community say about the library? We had anecdotal evidence and everybody lined up their advocates or skeptics on either side. But what was an objective basis upon which to formulate and frame this debate? So that's why we're here. I think we have a full program, and I think you're going to be engaged and informed, and I hopefully will come out of this in a much more informed and better place. I'm going to turn it over to Janelle, my partner in crime.
Thanks, Larry. My name's Janelle Darr, and I am the Executive Director of the Cumberland County Library System. I want to thank you, first of all, for coming tonight. We can't blame it on bad weather, any turnout problems. We have beautiful weather tonight. The only challenge was finding the right entrance to come into the building. So you all were successful, and I congratulate you. Larry said we have a great session tonight. We do, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say. We have 2 more sessions. If you turn to the back of your program, we have a Libraries of the Future panel discussion. We're bringing in some experts, 3 experts who are nationally known. Gary Golden, who's a library futurist based out of North Carolina. He'll be coming up to speak with us. Bill Schell from York County Libraries. Karen Archer-Perry, who was formerly with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and worked very closely with the Pew Institute on research that they do regarding digital libraries. And then the author of a recent report that was issued from the Aspen Institute, a think tank down in Washington, Amy Garmer, will be coming up from Washington, D.C. to talk about future roles of library services. And then finally, at the end of April, we have a discussion about library finance and where does the money come and where does it go when we talk about library services. And we have some experts coming in for that. Glenn Miller will be reporting on a state report that is due very shortly on how funding occurs across the state for Pennsylvania's libraries. We have Karen Collings, who's a certified fundraising professional with the Dauphin County Library System, who's very familiar with raising money for library services in South Central PA. We have Deborah Fulham Winston, who is with the Foundation for Enhancing Communities and is also very familiar with the grant-making opportunities that are available. And then Dr. Tom Stone, who's retired from the Whitaker Center as executive director and is now principal with the Franklin Group and does a lot of capital fundraising for libraries and other kinds of cultural and educational institutions. So after these 3 fact-finding sessions are done, we will then be moving to actual discussion sessions about what we have learned as a result of these 3 sessions. So that will be occurring later in May. So we're really anxious and eager to hear what you all have to share with us and to hear what you all think about it. So thanks again for coming, and I will turn the podium over to Monica Gould, our moderator for tonight.
Okay, welcome. So again, thank you so much for coming tonight. We appreciate seeing all these wonderful faces, supporting and learning a little bit more about our community. As we said, the purpose of this session is to learn a little bit more about the community needs, and we have assembled experts from the community as well as people from outside of our community that can help us to learn a little bit more about what our community needs are and how that may impact the libraries. So if you all have a program, the agenda is in the program. We're going to be sticking very closely to the agenda because we have a lot to cover in 2 hours. We want to make sure that we have the opportunity for questions and answers from the commissioners and the board, as well as from the audience. So let me walk you through a little bit about the format tonight. As you know, I am the moderator, and we have these 6 esteemed panelists up here. We have full bios of each of the panelists in your program. I'm going to give a brief introduction of each of the panelists in just a moment. What we're going to do is we're going to ask each panelist to answer some pre-prepared questions that they've had for a couple of weeks to think about and to really research so that they can provide you with informed information. And then after we have had the panelists discussing all of the questions that we're going to be posing to them, we'll give a period of question and answer. First priority to the commissioners as well as to the board members of the Cumberland County Library System. And then we will also have the audience participate in question and answers. With the question and answers for the audience, we ask that you put your question and answers on a 3x5 card and pass them up to us. And as time allows, we'll be answering those questions in order. A little bit about the ground rules tonight. So we have a lot of different opinions. This is not a partisan opportunity. This is an opportunity to learn about our community. So what we ask is that we respect each other's opinions and comments, and we refrain from interrupting or while they are speaking. At the end, we'll all have the opportunity to then present questions and have comments. Can we all agree to that? Yay! Okay, thank you very much. All right, in terms of introductions, I'm Monica Gould, clearly the moderator. Barbara Cross, do you mind standing? Waving to everyone. Chair of the Cumberland County Commissioners, Jim Hertzler. Thank you. Vice Chair, Gary Eichelberger. Secretary, and Larry Thomas, you have already met. All right, thank you, Larry. I would also like to introduce the Cumberland County Library Systems Board. Dr. Gould, who's the president of the Cumberland County Library System Board. Kevin Stoner, where's Kevin? There you go, Kevin. And I'm not sure who else is here. So we have Paul Fisher. Oh, sorry, okay. There you are, Paul. Oh, you're up there, okay. Hi, Paul. Jane Graham, there you are, Jane, sitting back there. Jim Hutchinson. Sue Simmons. Okay. Elizabeth Stone. There's Elizabeth. And of course, hi, Elizabeth. And of course, you know John L. Okay. So the other group of people that are not listed in terms of the introductions that I want to say a special thanks to is all of the library directors. They have worked very hard to put together a lot of different information for tonight's session so that we were all prepared. And they've been working very hard on our library system over the last several years. So, and also, Jasmine, thank you for taking notes tonight. We appreciate your help. So I'm going to start with the introduction of the panelists. So Tim Whelan, Tim, there he is, Vice President of Community Impact for the United Way. We'll discuss some of the recent findings of the United Way's in-depth community needs assessment and how libraries can address some of Cumberland County's most pressing needs. We have Lucy Zander. Hi, Lucy. She's the Executive Director of the United Way of Carlisle and Cumberland County. She'll speak about how the needs of the central Cumberland County communities are similar or different from those on the West Shore and how those libraries can positively address those needs. Okay. Kathy Silks, Project Manager, PA Forward, Pennsylvania Libraries for Pennsylvania Library Association, will discuss the ways in which libraries improve the community's quality of life by meeting the county's literacy needs. Thank you, Kathy. Dr. Kent Chrisman is a professor of early childhood education at Shippensburg University. He'll speak about the needs of young children and how library services can help prepare infants, toddlers, preschoolers to enter school ready to learn and to succeed. Thank you, sir. Kathy Possinger, Executive Director of Tri-County Community Action, a nonprofit community action agency serving Cumberland, Dauphin, and Perry counties, will talk about how the lives of those living in poverty can be changed by library services that can help them achieve self-sufficiency. Okay, and last but not least, David Kolaski, Associate State Director of Community Outreach for AARP, Pennsylvania, will discuss how older adults use libraries and the services that they need to enjoy a good quality of life. Okay, excellent. So before we get into the panel questions, we're going to have Janelle come up for about 10 minutes and talk a little bit about the baseline for the services that are in Cumberland County Library System so that you all have a sense of context.
There was a handout.
I want to use that one.
There was a handout. Is the microphone working?
That's not working right.
The microphone's coming.
Here, there's another one.
There was a handout that you received tonight that says Library Services Report. Looks like this. And that's what I'll basically be referring to. Is this one working? Okay. A lot of things to hold up here. Who we serve. We put some pictures on this slide to represent some of the many faces, the kinds of faces that we see in our libraries every day. From the West Shore's suburban families to Greater Carlisle's businesses and social services to the Western End's Amish and Plain people, the library system serves a really diverse group of people of all ages, sizes, colors, income needs, and just general needs for library services. Our library users include young children at home or those who use daycare services, infants, toddlers, and preschoolers who are just learning about the world and getting ready to be successful in school, elementary school children, especially those who are learning to read and help build their literacy skills, homeschoolers and their families, tweens and teens that need homework support or tutoring, and those who are just looking for something fun to do. We also serve, beyond those people, we also serve a lot of other types of needs. People without internet access or computers in their homes, families living in poverty who are looking for jobs or online access to government services, senior citizens who may be homebound or living in one of our county's more than 60-some senior living residences or nursing care facilities, prisoners at the county prison. You may not think about them needing books and education, but they very much do. Attorneys and people who need legal information that are now using our newly established law library. Veterans who have retired to the Cumberland County, or even active military who are stationed around the world who are downloading our e-books and e-audios to use while they're serving our country. Immigrants who are learning about American culture and society. Business people looking for quiet office space or high-speed internet service. Community groups needing a place to meet. People who need assistance with their information questions, or just older adults who are looking for help with technology. Those are just among some of the many faces of the people that we serve every day. We help those people via our website and our 8 public library facilities across Cumberland County. These buildings range in size from less than 2,000 square feet at our smallest facility, the East Pennsboro branch in Enola, about the size of my home, 2,000 square feet, or up to 53,000 square feet of library space, which is available in the newly renovated and reconstructed Bosser Library in Carlisle. All of them together, all those 8 public facilities have about 150,000 square feet of space. It's a lot of lights to turn on, a lot of toilets flushing every day, a lot of heating and air conditioning, and people to staff those buildings. Our libraries are open mornings, afternoons, and evenings, an average of 502 hours a week, with 58 of those occurring on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. It's also notable that we're strategically located in 8 boroughs across the county, actually serving as downtown magnets for many people. We have about 1 million visitors each year coming to downtown centers to help the business there. Also, the majority of people are less than 3 to 4 miles away from their local library, and no Cumberland County resident is more than 9 miles away from a library. So what do we do from those locations and from our website? First and foremost, our Cumberland County libraries serve as cornerstones of their communities. They are community centers that connect, inform, educate, entertain, and inspire those we serve. If you turn to page 3 in your report, you'll see 3 columns, long listings of services that we provide under each one of those particular headings. And I'm not going to read them all to you, but I invite you to take a glance at them. We do all of these things while working to be as responsive as we can to our local community's needs. Each library is governed by a local library board of community citizens who volunteer their time and who believe that free access to the books, ideas, resources, and information in our libraries is critical for our community's education, employment, enjoyment, and self-government. So what are the results? Our library system, we're proud to say, is the busiest in the state of Pennsylvania. Philadelphia surely circulates more items than we do, but on a per-person basis, our citizens borrow more items than any other library system in the state, and I think that's something to be really proud of. Even with the internet, that's something that hasn't put us out of business. It's actually incited, inspired, caused a lot more business for us. Our services have grown dramatically. Since the internet came along in 1994, our population, the citizens in Cumberland County have grown 21%, but library use has grown even more. In the last 20 years, children's summer reading program registrations have increased 133%. Homebound senior use, the delivery of materials to their homes, has increased 164%. Attendees at our classes and events have grown 274%. The total number of items borrowed each year has grown 74%. And we're changing all the time, we're evolving. And just in the last 5 years, things that we never counted in 1994 have come along. Our internet computer use has grown 189% in the last 5 years. Website visits have increased 37% in the last 5 years. And now we're beginning to see a shift from print usage to e-books and e-audio usage, where people are downloading our materials while they sit at home. Our e-book and downloadable audio recordings have grown 2,429% in the last couple of years. I also thought it would be interesting for you to know what some of our citizens are saying about our services. This past year, we conducted 2 surveys. First, we surveyed the parents of all the kids, the 7,500 some odd kids, who participated in our summer reading program. We found that 86% of parents said that the summer reading program helped their child enjoy reading more. 75% said that the program helped their child read books more easily. Who could ask for better results than that? Our second survey last year looked at adults and how they are using our internet and Wi-Fi internet connections in our libraries. We had more than 4,000 adults from across the county respond to the survey, and we learned that they are using the library's internet connections for a variety of things: educational purposes, resume preparation, online job applications, to learn about health issues, current events, to access online government services like Social Security applications, tax forms, even doing financial transactions and banking online at our library computers. We also learned that those services were critically important for a lot of people. 13% of the people who responded to the survey who use our internet services are low income, with 4% having no regular internet access at all to report. Also, 42% of the people using our computers said that they actually came to the library because they knew that there were people there who could help them use the computers, use the internet. So how does all this happen? On the last 2 pages of the report, you'll see a basic pie chart showing where the money comes from and how it's spent. More than half of our revenue comes from the county library tax, which is 0.143, a millage rate, which is based on property tax. The next largest sources of income come from state support, 18%, fund drives and grants, 17%, and fines and fees, 7%. And our expenses fall into 3 categories. We spend $6 million to operate those 9 facilities. The bulk of that money goes for staffing costs, makes up 2/3 of the expenses. Nearly all of our staff are part-time wage earners. More than 200 staff people work at our libraries, the equivalent of 104 full-time positions. Volunteers are also part of our workforce. They work the equivalent of 15, almost 16 full-time positions. Library materials make up 13% of the budget, and the remainder goes toward technology and facility operating costs. So that's a very quick overview of our library services here in Cumberland County. And if you have more questions, I invite you to look at our website, cumberlandcountylibraries.org, or catch me in the hall after this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Wow, we do a lot in this county. Thanks for the report. All right, so we're going to begin our question and answer period, and we're going to begin with question 1. All right, So our question is going to be first directed to Tim Whelan and to Lucy Zander. What are our community's greatest needs, especially as they may relate to library services? Tim, I'll have you maybe start. And I know that you gave me a little chart to put up there. So, yeah.
Let me see what I told you.
Here you go.
Oh, thanks. Good evening. At our United Way of the Capital Region, which serves essentially the eastern portion of Cumberland County, we've recently completed, and it'll be released next week, March 5th at 11 a.m., so please come on down to our place in Enola. We'll be releasing the results of our community assessment, which is essentially looking at life in what we like to believe the capital region, of which Cumberland County is a very important part. First, wanted to talk about some of the trends that we're starting to see, in particular here in Cumberland County. From that, I think I'll start to identify what we perceive to be the greatest needs of our community, and from there, how that might impact on library services here in Cumberland County. What we see as, first and foremost, Cumberland County is growing, and it is growing the fastest of any of the counties in the Cumberland region. In the capital region. Right now, today, there's roughly 560,000 people living in the capital region, Cumberland, Dauphin, and Perry counties. The fastest growing county of those three is Cumberland County. We anticipate by 2040, so looking at basically the next 15 years, that the region's going to grow to 628,000 people, which will be another 62,000 people here in the capital region over the next 15 years, between now and 2040. So 62,000 more people will be demanding services, looking for work here, looking to educate their children, looking to have a good quality of life, and a continuing good quality of life like we've had here in the capital region for many years. But with those demographic changes, we're also seeing that, except in Cumberland County, we're watching over the next so many years a declining school-age population. But we're going to be watching the seniors in our community starting to increase fairly significantly. So the over 65 and the oftentimes what are considered to be the senior elders, those 85 and over the next 30 years are going to increase significantly. So that we can expect that the over 65 group is expected to grow by 80% over the next 30 years, and the over 85 group is expected to grow by more than 132% in the years ahead. That's going to put a lot of real interesting pressures on us as communities. So I think first and foremost, one of the significant trends we got to look at is an aging population. But there are other things that are going on in our community that are also worthy of note. As a region, we're increasing in diversity, both from a race and ethnicity perspectives. We're also experiencing some significant increases in foreign-born and limited English proficiency populations. For any of you who live around Mechanicsburg, I'm sure you've seen a real growing Somali population. I mean, there are thousands of Somalis, refugees now living in the Mechanicsburg area. So we're watching those kinds of things happening that are changing, in many respects, our community in very positive ways, because it's bringing about diversity, which is invigorating our culture and is invigorating our community in a variety of ways. But we're not seeing much happen in the way of family composition. So there's very small increases that we can expect in husband-wife families, but yet we're going to be seeing significant increases, 13% in single-family parenthood. So again, those are trends that have been going on here for a while, and I think we can expect all of those to continue in the future. So that's from the demographic perspective. Other things that we've all been seeing here in our community, I think these are things that are now starting to change in our community and changing in our community in a positive ways. But recently, we've been really watching the shrinking of the middle class in our communities. We've been watching median household incomes decline in our region. Those declines have been significant here in Cumberland County. Declines in median household income declined since 2007 have declined by 8.8%. It's about 6% in Dauphin County, and there's been a very small increase in Perry County. So when you're starting to see declines in middle class, those have implications not only for quality of life in our community, but it have implications for disposable income findings, here in our community. So those are things that we all really got to watch. So I think the major trends are obviously aging population, shrinking middle class. So what does our community have a great need for? We have a need for every child to graduate from high school and graduate on time. I knew when I was growing up, my daddy, who was not a high school graduate, kept saying to me all the time when I was growing up, look, if you graduate from high school, you'll be set for life. Well, as you all know, the reality is that's probably not as true as it once was long ago and far away when I graduated from high school. However, we do know, though, that the graduating from high school is that major benchmark that all of our children have to achieve if they're going to be successful here in our community. We also know that everyone has to have access to health care. If you don't have your health, it's really difficult to participate in our community in very vigorous ways. We also know that everyone has to have their basic needs met for housing, for access to food, and people have to have family-sustaining jobs. And those are things that are always a struggle for everyone here. So when you look at the literacy challenges that we're facing in our community, we're looking at, first and foremost, people need to read. We know that if children are not reading proficiently by the end of third grade, that their chances of graduating from high school have been diminished by 75%. So being proficient in reading by third grade really makes a huge difference. And if you are by then, you got a 75% chance that you will graduate from high school. So reading is a big issue. Financial literacy is very important. People need to know how to deal with a much more complex banking and financial system than we've ever seen, to be able to properly prepare yourselves, not only for educating your children, but also for preparing for retirement age, as well as being able to sustain yourself in the community. So financial literacy is very important. And we also know that health literacy is something that's very important, because we know here in the Capital Region, 2/3 of the population in the Capital Region is either overweight or obese, 1/3 being obese. Those are really indications of what it takes to have a healthy lifestyle. And so health literacy and information about how to live a healthy life is very important. There are several people here who know my wife, but one of the things that she'll tell you about me is that I have a propensity for making a short story long. So what I'd like to do is maybe just stop with those, again, two major trends that are going on, ideas of what some of our needs are here in the community, and some of the literacy efforts that we have. So I guess with that, you want me to give it to Lucy?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. I think it'd be helpful if I briefly outlined the United Way of Carlisle and Cumberland County service area and how it differs from, say, the United Way of the Capital Region and also the Cumberland County library systems. United Way of Carlisle serves the following communities and their surrounding municipalities. It's Carlisle, Boiling Springs, Mount Holly Springs, Newville, Plainfield, and New Kingston. And our service area overlaps with the following libraries: Bosler Memorial Library, Amelia Given Library, John Graham Library, and the Joseph T. Simpson Library. When I describe our community's most pressing needs, it's seen through the lens of the United Way of Carlisle and Cumberland County's footprint, the areas that I just described. In 2012, we released our most recent community needs assessment, which identified the community's greatest needs to be, number one, increasing the supply of affordable housing, 2, increasing availability of public transportation. 3, employing effective treatment for behavioral health problems such as cognitive disabilities, mental illness, and drug addiction. Our study also identified that access to high-quality, affordable childcare and nutritious food is critical to an individual's ability to benefit from community programming. Lastly, our findings revealed the need for more effective collaboration and outreach between human service agencies and also faith-based organizations. How do these critical needs relate to library services? On at least 2 occasions in the past 18 months, I've had a conversation with Jeff Swope from the Bosler Memorial Library, who's sitting way in the back, like he's in church. And this discussion centered around, for a family or a person to access resources at their local library, their basic needs must be met first. It goes back to Psychology 101 and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If your basic biological and physiological needs, such as hunger, thirst, shelter, and warmth, are not being met, and you do not feel safe, you will not be interested or able to access the library's core service areas. Once those basic needs are met and satisfied, then people can begin to seek growth opportunities, such as the services that are offered at our local libraries.
Thank
I took
you.
a different spin.
All right, thank you. May I ask some of the other panelists, can you pass me back my notes, please? Thank you very much. Yeah. So, would you like to share your thoughts on what was just
I
shared?
certainly would. I'd like to go back to the high school graduation rate and say that that actually starts in infancy. There's a myth that it starts during public school, but most public school teachers who teach younger kids would say they know that there are radical, massive differences in the interest in words, the ability to figure out words. Kids come in with huge differences. Those kids who've had lots of experiences with books, with families who read to them every night, who play word games when they're young. I'm talking about infants, toddlers, preschoolers. That's when all of that language is happening. Books give little kids the opportunity to hear the sounds, and we now know that phonemic awareness is critical to later reading that happens in school. If they don't have those sounds, that is beginning sounds of words, ending sounds of words, they're behind the first minute they walk in the school door. They're behind. Now, that doesn't mean that teachers can't do huge amounts of work, huge amounts of help with them, but Tim said it has to happen by 3rd grade. So the window is small, actually. If they're not reading, and I don't know if you looked at a 3rd or a 4th grade reader, but those textbooks get radically more complicated. And if you're not reading at grade level by 3rd or 4th grade, then you're in trouble. And then kids begin to feel like they failed. And then sometimes it actually happens that by middle school, they actually begin to drop out of school. And that's not good for this community, that we would have dropouts who don't have high school graduation. That has lots of implications that Tim can probably discuss better than I can. I just want to say the services that are provided help both the families and little kids understand what books are. And I know that sounds silly, but little kids have to figure out, what's a book? You know, where does the print start? What is print? You know? We talk about even they have to figure out spaces between letters and spaces between words. I don't know if you've been around little kids much, but they don't know what spaces are even, right? Spaces, I mean, you've forgotten that maybe. But that's a big deal as far as little kids go. I thought about bringing infants tonight. That's the group that I talk with most, so, you know.
Thank you, Ken.
But they wouldn't
awesome.
come.
Yeah. Anyone else like to share their thoughts? Yeah.
Yes, just to reiterate some of the points that Tim raised here, from our perspective in looking at what some of the needs are, I'm glad that it echoes nationwide what it is that we see as an organization. And basically, if you were to break it down into two categories maybe, it's health security and it's financial security. A lot of people are really interested in both of those major topics, and under each of them are many different ramifications that you can speak about. So from the health side, many of you are caregivers. Many of you probably have somebody at home that you're caring for and had to make accommodations for in order to be here tonight. Many people in this audience are not here because they may be caregivers at home and could not make that respite care connection at home. But people are looking for answers. There are a lot of folks out there that think they're doing it on their own, and there are many people without any type of assistance, and again, thinking they're on their own. From a financial security standpoint also, life has gotten more complicated. How often can we no longer be able to talk to a real live operator on the phone these days? You have to be computer literate, you have to be phone literate, you have to know how many buttons you're pressing. You can't talk to a real person anymore. So from a financial literacy standpoint also, what we've seen are folks getting scammed, and especially many seniors. And when Jesse James was asked, why you rob banks, of course the answer is because that's where the money is. Discretionary income of seniors these days and individuals who are still in their active earning years, boomers, those are the ones that are highly targeted. And surprisingly enough, it's not the uneducated, it's very much the educated people. And especially men. Men think that they could sort of fool the system, that they know better, that they know a good deal when they can see one, and they're the ones most often duped. And you don't often hear about that also because people are embarrassed. There's a lot of embarrassment with that. So health security, financial security, those are some of the greatest needs, and people are looking for answers to that. And I would submit to you, libraries are a good place to start for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. You want to say something, Kathy?
No surprise coming from the Pennsylvania Library Association, but in my humble opinion, literacy underlies the needs that have been described across the panel. And I'll give you a few statistics that we have learned through our research. 13% of Pennsylvanians lack basic literacy skills, such as being able to read the newspaper. And that percentage has not changed since 1992. 41% of adults in America, and I'd love to do a poll of this audience, give themselves a grade of C, D, or F in their knowledge of finances and making good financial decisions. I won't ask all of you to raise your hands. Regular readers are more than twice as likely as non-readers to volunteer and get involved in their communities. Imagine the impact here in Cumberland County. And finally, nothing, not age, income, employment status, education level, or racial and ethnic background affect health status more than literacy skills do. And how important could that be today? Cumberland County Library System helps people meet the demands of life in the 21st century. It is that simple. Every day they help people build 5 essential types of literacy skills at any age: basic, information, health, finance, and civic and social. You do have some materials, I believe, part of the handouts that elaborate and share some additional statistics that we've learned in our research, and I'll be sharing more as we proceed this evening. Thank you.
Great.
And I'll just very simply add, Tim shared some wonderful information about our demographics in our community and the growing growth within the community, but I'll also note a growing disparity amongst the wealthiest and the poorest. We've seen a significant increase in Cumberland County. Of the 3 counties in the capital region, the poverty rate in Cumberland County increased over the last 10 years by 5.2 percentage points. higher than any other of the three counties in the capital region. So it's important to note that as our community grows, there is a growing need to assure that our poorest are provided the services and supports that they need, and of course the library is able to do that. I'd be happy to transition right
Yes,
into
we'll
if you'd like.
transition. So you're starting off with the next question.
With
Thank
the
you.
mic, thank you. Well, we've also, at Tri-County Community Action, we work within all of Cumberland County, serving between Shippensburg and Enola, where our offices are located, and working our way into the center in Carlisle and hitting every point in between. And as an organization committed to addressing the root causes of poverty in our communities, we look at a number of the core facets and areas that Tim brought up earlier and that Lucy reiterated, as well as core challenges here in Cumberland County. The library provides such a tremendous asset and network in order to be able to address some of the service needs. When you look at the color-coded chart on the library's webpage and included in all of the branches of the just services that for the youngest of young to the oldest of seniors and everyone in between who has a special need or niche within the community, it's very critical in addressing some core needs. The library has an opportunity in addressing some of the needs of our poorest. We heard about financial literacy and financial education. Our staff utilize the libraries on a regular basis within the county for private meeting time as an opportunity to open your doors to be able to meet one-on-one with constituents, one-on-one with those who are developing a goal plan, who've asserted that they want to move towards self-sufficiency and economic independence and don't know how to do that. We work one-on-one and establish that financial plan. We establish a plan for education, for meeting transportation needs or employment goals. So providing that service for our local community is a great tool that the library is able to do to help meet those needs. Related to health care and access, there are many libraries throughout the country that are utilizing their trained staff to be able to answer some of those basic questions that even the smartest of us sitting at this table probably would have to struggle with as well, related to the new Affordable Care Act. And what are some of the smallest nuances, at least that initial question to get you in the door? I come from a family of librarians. My sister and her husband are both librarians in New York State, and they share very easily that their services have transitioned so much over the years that we're not about books anymore. We're about community and a community space, but also a space where the basic information can be shared and learned. We've seen a decrease in unemployment, and that's something, of course, across our region we've seen very recently, and an increase in job availability here in Cumberland County, family sustaining wages and introductory wages. As a library, we have an opportunity to provide one-on-one, but also some group time and group education. There's opportunities within our computer labs and resources for job search, for resume building. Training opportunities for staff are also partnering with some of our local community-based organizations to help assess the needs of our community, help them to build their skill sets. We have some wonderful public meeting spaces in the rear of many of our library buildings that would be perfect setup for group financial education, housing education. We talk about the needs of seniors moving forward and a goal of aging in place and staying in our homes. Financial literacy and the core of financial services is critical to that. To be able to understand what it means to spend 30% of your income on your housing costs. In Cumberland County, more than 40% of our population is spending more than 30% of their income on their housing costs. That means that we're cost burdened and we're strapped for cash and are struggling with meeting those basic needs. Again, I think some of the critical services that we have here within the library and as a community resource is that transition from a place of books and information to a place of information and community and where we can work together to address some of the service needs of our community's neediest.
Thank you. Does anyone want to add to that? Kathy's points? Okay.
I will. I'll jump in.
Yes, please. Okay.
And kind of summarize the way I look at this. Libraries build literacy and learning skills from the very earliest ages, as Kent mentioned. So in the basic literacy realm, no one is positioned to do this as well as libraries do. And sustaining year-round learning through the programming that they offer, not just for our youngest citizens, but all the way through to our oldest citizens. I'm fastly emerging into that segment of the population myself. Libraries help us gain a command of online resources, more and more important every day. Being able to gain a job. Most jobs require online application. And if you don't have access and you don't know how to use a computer, you are sunk. So libraries help us gain a command of new online resources and technologies, and that is available for everyone. Libraries guide us to lead healthier lives and make more informed healthcare decisions. Libraries prepare us to make smarter financial decisions at home, at work, in our community, as heads of organizations and serving on boards. Libraries support our ability to engage in and contribute to community life, to vote, for goodness sake. To prepare citizens to meet those demands of life, libraries offer what I think of as 4 different categories of service. One, obviously, is print and online resources. The second is public programs. The third is outreach to the community. And the fourth, and maybe the most important in my mind, is that librarians are our society's only trained information access experts. Think of the impact of that. Every day, librarians in those 8 libraries across this county help people access information they need to be successful in life when no one else will help those people gain that information.
Thank you. Anyone else wanna? Okay, Lucy?
On this, I just wanted to say that on the surface, it sounds like I'm saying the libraries are not meeting the community's most pressing needs, but I really do beg to differ with that. I think that they're not, the way I described it, what was defined in our 2012 needs assessment, the libraries weren't meeting those particular basic needs. But I would say that if the libraries ceased to operate or if programming was reduced, the landscape, one could reasonably predict that over time, the needs of the community would change. And if those services were reduced, the landscape of our community would also change. I recently read an article that stated the following. It said that the library is an indispensable institution that somehow manages to get completely taken for granted. Not true probably for this audience, but probably true for a lot of the community. It's one of those things that's just always there, and people don't think about it until they need to use it. And the article also went on to say that small towns, can survive without movie theaters. It can survive without theaters, fancy restaurants, and stores. And they can even survive without bookstores. But small towns really need public libraries. Our local public libraries serve many functions. Their services are really an extension of human services, and they nicely complement the public school systems. The library is a place where kids can gather and do their homework or do a research project. It's a place where small children can gather for story hour. It's a safe haven where senior citizens can pass the time in the company of others. And it's a place where the unemployed can look for work or apply for jobs online. The public library has features that differ from other institutions. Mainly, it's public and it's free. Where else can you go for free? There's not very many places. You can go to the coffee shop, but you can't stay there all day for free. Same with diners and other establishments. Citizens can use the library no matter who they are, regardless of their personal beliefs or their level of income. They're not bound by class, economic or cultural norms. Libraries cater to everyone, and that's what makes them so special.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to question number 3. Are there any other groups that you're aware of in our community that are addressing some of the needs that perhaps is causing duplication? We're going to start with you, Kathy.
In a one-word answer, no.
Hey, we're on time.
As Lucy just said, we're so fortunate to have a system in place where resources under one roof can easily provide services free to any constituent, any member of our community and a member of society. Yes, there are community-based organizations that may offer access to internet services. There may be organizations like our local Career Link that provide direct access to online job search. Yes, there may be organizations that have book distribution, that have child development programming, that have parenting activities. But offering that service as a community, and a community asset and a community strength, the great need within our community is to complement those services and reinforce them on a consistent basis. I think we have many complementary organizations. The libraries provide a very unique service, housing the core services, meeting the core community and constituent needs. Every single library within the Cumberland County system provides a unique service based on the core needs of that community. And I guess I can reinforce that again, based on the needs of the community. And even talking with the librarians, their services change based on some of the community demands. Something as simple as a cross-stitch and knitting club may sound a little outside of the scope of a traditional library, but we learn very quickly that it's a community public gathering space. And as Lucy shared, without that, our communities certainly do suffer. So I would say very simply that I'm not a fan of the word duplication unless it's a true duplication. What we see is providing a great complement of services in our libraries.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to pipe in for that one? We can move on to the next question. What do you see as the most critical services that the Cumberland County Library System provides? And has this changed over the past few years? Kathy Selks, you want to start?
I'm glad you said services and not service, because I was never going to give you just one. In fact, if anybody wants to spend the night, I could talk all night about this.
Please don't.
Libraries transform lives, and they do it in very creative ways. And you can see that just by looking at the events list for the 8 branches across this county. All the amazing ways that they contribute to the health and vitality of the communities that they serve. So keeping in mind that Cumberland County helps people build 5 essential types of literacy skills. How do they do that? Well, I have some favorites that I'd like to share with you, and you may be familiar with some of these. In the basic literacy realm, book deliveries to county prison inmates. What more important population could you serve? Recidivism is so alarmingly high, and you're really helping those folks in the most basic way to connect them to learning resources. Literary lunch is one that I love at the Shippensburg Public Library, where they serve low-income children with lunch as well as learning from books all through the summer. And the Summer Reading Club makes such a difference to thousands of children, helping them to keep their reading skills level and growing across the summertime, where they would creep away otherwise. Kids Read to Dogs programs. Now, you may sit there and say, oh, isn't that sweet? Well, it is sweet, but research shows that these are effective programs in helping young children who have reading problems. Why? If you have a dog, you know the answer. The most non-judgmental creature on earth is a dog. And for young children who stumble over words and have difficulty with reading to that non-judgmental character with those big eyes who just sits there and waits for the rest of the story and doesn't correct your pronunciation or urge you along when you stutter or pause, makes a huge difference. I've seen these in action, and they are so incredibly moving and so incredibly effective. And job application assistance. This may not be something you think about unless you've been looking for a job. But this is the one central place in any community with a library that you can go for that help. Information literacy. All of the libraries are doing something in the realm of technology classes. I'll give a shout out to Jeff Swope and the Bosler Memorial Library because their array of classes is absolutely awesome. And my husband and I, who are fairly dim-witted in this category, are going to be making the trip to Carlisle to take some of your classes because they're phenomenal. Wonderful offerings. And again, online job assistance with job searches is a huge service that our libraries provide. In the area of civic and social literacy, I'm going to pick on Bosler again because they did a wonderful volunteer speed dating event this past year that brought local not-for-profit organizations and potential volunteers together to learn about what opportunities are there. What a brilliant and creative idea. And I think the person who came up with that is right here in the audience, Kate Mellon. Hi. Yeah, a shout out to you. A brilliant, brilliant concept. Another that I would put in civic and social literacy that might raise your eyebrows a bit is children's fiction reading. I've seen some comments to some of the newspaper articles about the fact that libraries do an awful lot of entertaining and kids reading fiction. Perhaps those folks aren't aware of the research that is going on literally all around the world that is showing that children learn empathy skills in their very youngest years through storytelling and reading. And think about your own life. Where do you go to understand human nature and how people tick? You read books, you read fiction. What makes people do sometimes the bizarre and criminal things that they do? We can learn what makes people tick by reading novels, and that is true of our youngest citizens as well. Research is proving this. In the realm of health literacy, Simpson Library does Wellness Wednesdays. Bosler has a wonderful Helping Families with Big Problems program. And as Kathy mentioned, guiding people through the Affordable Care Act process is a huge service that I know has had impact on lots and lots of families. And finally, financial. A recent example that I saw at Simpson was consumer tips from AARP. So helping our very oldest citizens to make good and careful financial decisions that will impact the rest of their lives. I could go on and on, I already have, but those are a few examples of how your 8 libraries are building essential literacy skills every day in people's lives, people of all ages.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathy. Kent, do you want to share anything related to that, please?
Let me just say that when we think of groups that are users, then I think one group that we haven't talked much about would be parents. I've noticed over the years as an early childhood educator that children come with those. You know, it took me a few years, but I figured that out finally. Parents need other parents to talk with. They don't always know what to do with babies. Or if you've been around toddlers lately, they don't know what to do with toddlers. Toddlers to me are sort of aliens. I mean, they do odd things. They don't have great language, but they want something and you don't know what that is. Okay, but they know that they want it. It's good. These are good places for parents to come and talk with each other, especially during story times, all sorts of events for little kids. Well, while those kids are busy, parents get a chance to talk with each other. Do you know something about this? And then, of course, there are great resources that people can help with. So I don't think we should forget about young parents who may not know, what to do with little kids, or what's the best course of action. Okay, I'll stop there.
It's okay. Thank you. David, did you want to share anything?
I'm not sure I have anything more to say about, what's been said, so I will,
Defer?
I'll defer, yes.
All right, great. Okay, let's move on to question number 5. Oops. What services should the Cumberland County Library System provide that it does not currently? And I have you, Dr. Kent, starting with this one.
I have the answer, so please listen. That's my job, really. So, okay, there's this group of business owners. Now, that may be strange for me to say, but there's a group of business owners who operate child care facilities who absolutely need support. We're not talking about people who make a lot of money. They're very stressful jobs, but they need services. They spend their days caring for little kids so that other people can go to work. This is really a workforce issue, and I can't think of a better opportunity than if there could be technical assistance, if people could come out and bring books or information for the staff, for the directors, even how to run a business might be one piece of technical support. So I would say don't forget the child care community in this county, and I'm not talking about necessarily child care centers that are supported by other sources. I'm talking about sometimes very small business owners who absolutely need support.
I'd like to just hop onto that, and from the other side of the spectrum, I've done some work in York County. One of the initiatives down there is called the Embracing Aging Initiative. So it's really up my alley because I'm a big proponent of sort of disrupting the cycle of aging, or at least disrupting aging the way that we talk about it right now. So rather than having these sort of identities that say, after you reach a certain chronological age, you're automatically in this group, so you go to this part of the library. I really think that what we need to be doing is talking about people where they're at right now, where they can be, so that they could realize their possibilities. So getting back to York, one of the initiatives there is with the business community, but it's trying to make the business community respond more to looking at seniors and making it an age-friendly type of business, because when you look at the discretionary power, the purchasing power of many individuals, again, as I alluded to before, very often there's not a recognition that sometimes even society marketing and everything else is more towards younger folks, the sort of Madison Avenue sort of, whole marquee look there. But very often some of the opportunities that to cater towards seniors, whether that be access issues, one of the things that the food market giant is doing down there is they actually use a bus that picks up individuals and brings them, provides free transportation at different senior centers and nursing homes down there to bring them into Giant Food Market. So they rent the bus during downtime. So if the county transportation system, typically between the hours of maybe 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, has a lot of downtime there, why not repurpose those buses and use them? And if a business initiative or an opportunity exists for a place like, I might just use Giant, but it could be any grocery store, for example, that wants to rent out those buses during that time to pick up individuals, to transport them to some of the areas that they really need, food, just getting out. Isolation is a killer for individuals, so taking a look at that. So approaching it and looking at those needs, and I think libraries can often be the focal point. People can gather at the libraries. There could be actual stops there, shuttle stops for individuals. So while individuals come and take a look and look at the books, look at any other type of social engagement there, they then get picked up and maybe taken elsewhere. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the Commissioner about the proposal that they're looking to do in terms of transportation and bringing in seniors using the shared ride system within Cumberland County in a real progressive way in terms of taking individuals and being able to have them come into libraries here within the county. I think that's real progressive, so I wanted to mention that as well.
Excellent, thank you. Does anyone else want to share some thoughts in regard to that question? Yeah, Kathy?
We have to wait a 3-second delay here. One area, we've talked about so many potential services, and there are so many great ideas that were thrown out today. One area that I want to assure that as we're thinking about the services that the library could provide is that we're mindful of the equity of service within all of the branches of the system. In our communities of greatest need, as many of you know, if you know Cumberland County well, the West Shore community and the Shippensburg area are the two areas within the county that are of highest poverty and highest need. And those are also the two that have the most reduced hours of library service. So let's be mindful as we're talking about expanding services and expanding need, that we're also addressing the hours of operation for our library centers as well.
Thank you.
Two things come to mind for me. One may be happening already, and I'm not aware of it because I'm not a Cumberland County resident. But the one that stands out for me is that libraries can play an important role in what I would call an integrated interagency approach to serving families in need. When you think of county departments like drug and alcohol, children's services, etc., many of them work with the same families. And I think it would be mindful of the library system to be a part of those conversations. How can the libraries be a resource to those agencies and, most importantly, to the families that they serve, the families of prisoners, etc. You won't find a more important, again, and more needing population in the county, and I would love to see the libraries step up and offer solutions as resources and part of the conversations that go on at those planning tables. The second area is a little easier to accomplish, and that is when I looked over the list of events going on in libraries across the county, where I saw maybe a bit of a weakness is in the area of financial literacy skills for our very youngest citizens. We need to teach children before they go to school, and we need to teach them in case their families don't. Remember the families that grade themselves C, D, or F in their knowledge of finances? We have to help our very youngest citizens understand what money means. How do you get it? How do you spend it? How do you give it? How do you make good financial decisions? How do you help to make important organizations in your community happen through gifts of money? Children at the very youngest ages do understand these concepts, and there are great books and great programs to help them with that, and I'd like to see more of that happening in this community. That, if nothing else happens, will greatly affect the quality of life in Cumberland County in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we're on to our final question here. What do you see as the future role of the Cumberland County Library System in meeting our community needs? David, want to start with that one, please?
Yes. What I want to go back to and echo something to Kathy, and I can't even say Kathy C or Kathy K because they're both Kathy with Ks here, but Kathy to my immediate left said and reiterated a couple times, and I really believe this is true. I think libraries of the future, Cumberland County as well as other libraries across the nation, really have to be conscious of the community and what it represents. You have to be that pulse of the community. You have to not sit within the library itself, but you have to be out there almost doing community needs assessments, or at least paying attention to those entities that do community needs assessments, And, and it differs by neighborhood even within counties, as we can see. There's pockets of poverty, there's pockets of great wealth within the county as well, and that reflects the nature of what the people's needs are there. So paying attention to what's outside your walls there is really important, and it's going to provide the lifeblood for how libraries in the future can flourish. So what I wanted to do was mention a couple libraries that have been doing sort of stellar and out of the box, out of the wall thinking about a couple ideas. And I'm sure somebody's going to tell me we do that already in Cumberland County, so correct me if I'm wrong here. But I've done a little bit of looking at across the nation what some innovative libraries have been doing here. For example, in Piscataway, New Jersey, not that far away from us, they have a make-it-yourself program in which they actually bring in and have access to, people have access to 3D printers, a 3D scanner, audio recording equipment, and even a digital vinyl cutter to make records of all things. Remember, people are going back now to records. Imagine that. Things come full circle. More low-tech library customers can actually come in and use a sewing machine or a button maker. And a lot of people nodding their heads because there's a lot of people in the generation that probably never grew up even seeing what a sewing machine was or anything, but certainly many people in this audience know what that is. So that's going on in Piscataway. Even an hour or two from here in Philadelphia, the Free Library of Philadelphia, many libraries here traditionally have hosted authors for book discussions. The Free Library in Philadelphia takes it one step further and actually they record the authors' events and share them on free podcasts so anyone can listen at any time. So they're not wedded to, oh, I couldn't make that, how am I going to get that? But the podcasts are a way of keeping people in the loop on that. This next one's a really innovative idea, and I was hoping when I first read it, it was Oakland, Pennsylvania, out near Pittsburgh, but it's Oakland, California, but it's still the United States. Has anyone ever needed or rented a tool out there that I've only used for like 45 minutes, but the cost was like outrageous, and you even debated, I think I could do this myself because I don't know if I can get it back to when the second day kicks in for the rental of this. Well, out in Oakland, they actually used a community development block grant in order to purchase tools for it. So it's a tool lending library out there where you can borrow concrete cutting saws, post diggers, even a staple gun, anything like that. Things you wouldn't think of that your local library would actually have there. They have over, right now, since 2000 when they first opened, I think the first month they had a request for 52 tools. This past year, October was the last time I at it, 4,500 requests for tools. So over the course of time, it's gotten to know. Again, it's word spreads in the community. You don't have to go to a local discount store and pay those prices. There's a lending library, and not only that, but libraries have built programs around those uses of tools also. I thought that's really innovative. So they lend tools. You could borrow two tools at a time for up to a week. If you're a good tool user, meaning you return the tools on time, you can borrow up to 5 tools. So there's an incentive for tool time here. So imagine building programs and workshops and involving the community, retired skillsmen, tradespersons. I just read something recently where Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, is going to be without, in the next 10 years, 40% of their electricians. And all those crafts out there, those trades out there are not something that's being replenished out there in the larger community. So doing something like with tools and showing youngsters from an early age how to use those tools, and it's a nice intergenerational project. So I think there's a lot of follow-up that can be done with that. Toronto, up in Toronto, so we're going outside the borders of the United States, okay. They actually have access to a full pantry of cooking equipment. You could rent out a 36-cup coffee maker, bread maker, and items can be borrowed there for up to 7 days. So apparently, it's not as streamlined as the tool borrowing. Spokane Public Library, Spokane, I should say, aspiring filmmakers out there are in luck because you can actually, out there, they circulate video kits that include high-def digital video cameras. And for more advanced, they even offer wireless microphones and telescopic mic booms for those aspiring producers and directors out there. And speaking of directors and producers, how many people watched the Oscars this past weekend? Okay. How many people watched it but don't want to raise their hand? Well, I don't know. Well, I watched the tail end, but I spent more time watching my wife watch the Oscars because to her, the Oscars are her Super Bowl. So, you know, be that as it may. There's something right here in your backyard, and I'll get to it in a second, but there's an organization called Music and Memory. So it's musicandmemory.org. And what they do, if any of you have heard about it, I spoke about Alzheimer's disease and the devastating illness that is, and the fact that so many people are caregivers. There's this program where what they do is they collect these iShuttles and iShuffles and the iPods, which are the music, and they basically sweep them clean, and they find out what the customized music is of that individual within a memory unit of an Alzheimer's unit is. And they actually put on the music of their years. And when they put the headphones on individuals in the nursing homes who have Alzheimer's, who are just lethargic, just sitting there, nobody can get through to them, they perk up. It's really an amazing, amazing thing that will just touch your heart and touch your soul when you see that. Imagine the fact that what libraries do already when they rent out technology, why not be a collecting post for all the teenagers and all the other folks who no longer use their iPods because they know they can put their music on their smartphone now. But all of those things out there can be repurposed and used and provided to nursing homes. In Pennsylvania, there are 3 nursing homes or continuing care retirement communities that have a formal memory or music and memory program with it. 3 of them all 3 are in the mid-state. So there's one in Lidditz, there's one in Mechanicsburg, and there's one in Carlisle. And it occurs at Chapel Point. So I would encourage you to take a look at their iShuffle program out there, and they actually are using those within that. The reason I brought up the Oscars before was that the best actress was Julianne Moore, and for the movie, which was a phenomenal movie, it's just very touching. Still Alice. Alec Baldwin, who I gained a better appreciation for in watching that movie, is co-stars with her in that. But it really gets to some of the elements about early onset Alzheimer's and an individual's struggle through that. So you may hear more about that movie because it really shines a spotlight on not only Alzheimer's disease but caregiving as well. So those were a couple examples, and I wanted to at least have an example locally of what libraries can become because I think there's a lot of richness and a lot of possibility. And most of us in our lives, what we want to do is we want to leave a legacy. We want to leave a legacy for our families. We want to write our next chapter. We want to determine what's next is, and I think collectively as a community, can you imagine if the libraries in this community were able to really springboard on this and go forward with it? What a spotlight and what a great community service that would be. So I'll end at that point.
Thank you. Do any of the other panelists like to share in terms of the future of the library services? Kathy? Of course, yes, Kathy. Thank you.
That's what my project is all about. Well, I'll just pose a question. Simple, perhaps, on the surface. How will Cumberland County build a better future? One that brings higher levels of school and career readiness, information access, community engagement, personal wellness, and financial health to all of its citizens. Anybody disagree with that as something to hope for? I'm guessing this is a question that our elected officials particularly probably ask themselves every day. How can I, in my work, build a better future for Cumberland County? Well, libraries can help solve some of our community's biggest economic and social problems, but they can't do it if they are not adequately resourced. And I will end there.
Thank you. Okay, so the final question for the panelists this evening is, and this is sort of open forum, is have you learned anything from each other this night that you would like to share, and what ideas have been sparked for you?
Kathy and I have worked together in the past, and I know Kathy is working in her dream job right now, and she'll tell you that. But the Pennsylvania Forward program and all of the components of it on financial literacy, when I said health security, financial security, I'm just like, oh boy, I don't want to add something new to my plate, but I have to. Financial literacy is just so important, and part of that is sort of fraud protection and making sure people's identity is not stolen, because those con artists out there are preying out there. They're always one step ahead, and we need to do something about that, about not only teaching people from an early age on through, but making sure people aren't timid about using computers, because cyberspace could become one of those areas that people fall prey to. So Kathy and I are definitely going to connect, and I think Kathy as well, just in terms of, because libraries are not, one size does not fit all, and they have to be all things to all people when you look at it. And that's a very difficult challenge to be at also. But very often what's neglected are the people that don't have a voice out there, and the isolation of individuals. And I said earlier, isolation will kill you. It absolutely will kill you. And that's literal as well as figurative. So if there's any way that the library system here, and I know there's the STAR program where there's actual delivery of books and information into people's homes, if there's any way that can be enhanced by, again, partnering with other agencies out there. The Area Agency on Aging gives out money and to do home delivered meals. Can you imagine on every tray that is offered there within the senior center, within a home delivered meal, if there's a very practical form that people can maybe order a book with. Hunger is a great issue. Libraries can be sort of collecting posts. Food insufficiency, especially in senior populations, is great. People often go without food because they have to take their meds. They often split their meds because they can't afford the prescription costs. And with that, it's just too bad in this country that people have to go without eating meals. And it'll be very easy for libraries, for example, to partner with food banks or with food pantries to be collecting posts. And if you did something, and I'm just throwing this out, I don't know what the rules are, but if you took out a library book and you maybe had an additional week, if you brought in a non-perishable canned food and set that up within the library as a collection post, there's something to start with, a germ of an idea going forward. And this way, again, you're responding to larger community needs. So again, I think working with the most vulnerable and isolated individuals and trying to meet some of their needs are ways that we can be a more compassionate society.
Thank you, David. Anyone else like to share? Yes.
Can I just add quickly,
Yeah.
This is also based on what Kathy S. said. I'm a little biased here, but I believe there's an absolute connection between what happens in early childhood and college degrees, and people who work in higher education who get those advanced degrees. So I asked my classes recently, what are your memories, your youngest memories of going to a library? Most of them were they had clear memories, very, very positive memories of those very early childhood experiences. And I have to tell you, I work with a large number of college students who are first generation. So that means they're the first in their family to pursue college degrees. There has to be, I believe, a connection between those early experiences and really what I call falling in love with books, falling in love with reading, falling in love with the sound of words and sounds. That happens at the youngest ages, and I believe that continues all the way through life, actually, but certainly through college years.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so we're to the portion of the program where we have open question and answers. We're first going to give priority to the commissioners and the Cumberland County Library Board. In the interest of time, we want to make sure that our questions and our comments are somewhat truncated, but we don't want to lose any of our thoughts. So at this point, I'd like to offer the opportunity for the commissioners as well as the library board members to ask any questions that you have for the panelists. And there are mics here at the end that you may stand up and utilize, or we can bring one to you if you like. Sure, Jonelle.
I just wanted to ask Kathy. Oh, the 3-second delay. I wanted to ask Kathy Possinger. You said, you talked about equity of access and mentioned areas of poverty, greatest poverty in the community. And you said the Shippensburg area, and then you said the West Shore. Was that correct, the West Shore? Not the river districts, okay.
Okay.
Because I've been watching poverty rates for school districts. And the poverty rates are very high in Shippensburg. And they're reaching almost the same level in the Carlisle area as well.
Yes, and you're absolutely correct. Shippensburg in Cumberland County has the highest concentration of poverty. And the river districts primarily in the West Shore. Many school districts, we also look by those communities who have the highest portion of free and reduced lunches at the schools. But the poverty rate themselves, we see Shippensburg again is the highest in our community.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Commissioner?
Okay, so at the end of the day, if I heard Kathy correctly, it comes down to how are we going to resource this valuable service that we have with all of our libraries. And I know that our chief clerk mentioned that we're not going to talk about taxes at all. But in fact, in the beginning here, we say, we're going to try to build an agreement, reach an agreement on the library system's vision, roles, and services, as well as a business model that includes sustainable funding strategies for the next 3 to 5 years. So, that's one of the questions I have as we move forward with all of these panel discussions is, how do we do that? What is the fair way to do that? As provided in the chart, it shows that for every government dollar that's provided, $3 comes from the county property taxpayers to every $1 provided by the state. And that's essentially where the government funding is, 3-to-1 ratio. But I want to talk about something I think Kathy mentioned and Tim mentioned, and that is, meeting the needs of the future. And one of the things, and in fact, I've had a conversation with Janelle about this and some other folks about it, and also our folks down at the Department of our Area Agency on Aging. And that is, and we heard tonight about how we have, essentially an increasing number of children living in single-parent households or being raised in single-parent households. We know that a great number of our married couples are now working, each one of them is working. And a lot of kids, end up after school, a home alone. And then on the other hand, we heard one of the other statistics I think that Tim mentioned is about how fastest growing population is our senior citizens, and especially those 85 and older. So one of the things that I see, if we could bring them together, and I know there's a lot of concerns these days, but, you know, our senior citizens, you know, still have, you know, so much to teach, and our young people have an awful lot to learn. So perhaps our libraries, you know, could serve as a gathering place where we could have maybe some structured programs of intergenerational activity where our seniors could benefit and our young people could benefit. I think it was John F. Kennedy that said many years ago, now that we've added so many years to life, we need to add life to those years. So
Excellent.
anyway,
Excellent.
just a couple
Any
thoughts.
thoughts or comments?
Yes, I invite you to contact me because I'll give you examples of places in Pennsylvania where those programs are actually happening very successfully. So we should talk.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other questions from commissioners? No? How about the library board? How about the audience in general? Well, come on up. Well, I think we just let them come up at this point.
Thank you for being here this evening. A question, I'm not sure how the libraries are going to meet this, but just this morning, the House Education Committee passed H.R. 102, which is Career and Technical Education Subcommittee. Right now, today, we have approximately 10,000 jobs in Pennsylvania, skilled labor jobs that are not filled. Over 300 in York County, machinists and welders. Thaddeus Stevens, which is one of our premier trade schools in Pennsylvania, a graduate, the average graduate earns $50,000. A welder out of that school earns $70,000. So my question to the libraries are going to be, what are we doing to meet that need, which will fulfill, you know, taking people out of poverty? Because skilled labor, and I know Dr. Kent, you want 4-year degrees. PPG, which is right here in Mount Holly Springs, they don't want 4-year, well, I shouldn't say they don't want. They want people graduating from tech and associate degree programs. That's what they need, high-paying jobs. And what I just told, you know, those are higher pay than a lot of 4-year degrees. So I'm not sure how the library system is going to meet that need, but that is a huge need we have in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you so much for bringing that point, and you're absolutely correct. In talking with our workforce community, with our local trades unions, the critical thing, and we're seeing, is a transition from not everyone prepare for a 4-year degree post high school, but also looking for opportunities in trades programs. The critical thing that we hear from employers as well isn't just the traditional skills and the workforce skills, but also where the libraries can be a great resource is in the social skills, is in the financial literacy and understanding and managing your paycheck, so that on a Friday when I earn that wonderful new paycheck, that I'm able to manage it and I'm able to make some priority decisions within my household that don't cause me to be late for work, run into other problems that become a social impact of employment that many of our employers are looking for. Those core social skills, the communication skills, and again, the literacy skills, ability to achieve in math and science. Those are some of the core reinforcements with tutoring or tutoring type programs that might be a great benefit to augment those services, while also partnering with job placement, on-the-job training, individual training accounts out of your local workforce investment board, and career links, also EDSI and Employment Skills Center and others who can help to develop those core skills that we need.
Excellent, thank you.
I absolutely support you. I'm a klutz. I can ruin plumbing. I can ruin electricity. So I absolutely believe in that. You know, there's no question of that need. My major concern is high school graduation. I want people to graduate from high school first and then make those kinds of lifelong decisions, right? But high school graduation is first. And that goes back to early literacy, early reading. It absolutely, to graduate from high school, you need those reading skills, okay? I would say to you, linked to this, and this is gonna sound odd, but there's been a radical increase in the emphasis on nonfiction books, and that gets kids interested in the world and how the world works, including building, and figuring out how does the world work. Years ago, that was not true, but I think recently we've had this major focus on, you know, nonfiction and introducing kids to animals and plants and machinery. So that's linked. I hope that's linked into what you were saying.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions? Boy, you're a quiet audience. Are you sure there's nothing else? All right. Well, we won't.
Monica, I'm going to
Yes,
jump in
go
here
ahead,
and say,
please.
I was hoping that someone would ask tonight, why do we need libraries when all they do is provide entertainment? As I was preparing for tonight and looking over the newspaper articles that have been in the Sentinel and other publications over the past year, one of the themes was, what do we need libraries for when they just entertain people? And that to me is like asking, why do we need a school when they offer recess?
Okay. Yes.
Just to follow on what Kathy just said, until recently I was the coordinator of adult programs at the Bosler Library in town. And one of the program series that I offered, and that they still offer, is a weekly movie series. And one night I think she told me she was 85 years old. She came out to the movie. She'd never been there before. She was just tickled pink when I handed her a bag of popcorn that was a free thing that we offer with the movie. And I was kind of rushing to pack everything up at the end, and she came up to talk to me, and she told me she just would not stop thanking me for just everything, for the popcorn, for the movie. It was one of the best movies she'd ever seen. And in the course of this conversation, she told me that, and this still gets me worked up. She had lost her husband about 6 months before. And her daughter had finally, after several months, been able to sort of drag her out of the house and get her, just going out and doing something. And she told me, and I'll never forget this, thank you so much for this experience. I felt like I was fading away and my life was over, and you've offered me another reason to keep coming up. So yes, it's entertainment, but it's so much more than that. So.
Thank you. Thank you. That's nice. Very sweet. Thank you for that story. Appreciate that. Anyone else want to share? Questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Libraries, no matter where I live, have given me a sense of security. And right now, in my county, I feel like the sense of security could disappear, could fade away because of funding. I'm sorry that we're not supposed to be able to talk about this tonight, but that is a key question. And we can ask these other questions, but without that, or that being the last thing we're going to talk about, what would be said in this room if we knew that our funding free public library was secure? Would we have been offering more for this discussion? And thank you, I am feeling less secure because this one thing could disappear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. So I encourage you to come to the future 2 panels, because the third panel discussion is really going to be about the financing and how do we make that happen. So I encourage you to come out to the next 2 conversations. And then after we have these panel discussions, we will be having conversations directly with the commissioners and the library board to talk about the future of the libraries and what that looks like for Cumberland County. So I do appreciate your participation and your enthusiasm to be here and your willingness to share your concerns as a citizen. Thank you very much. Okay, on that note, I would like to thank all of you for coming tonight. I appreciate all of your time. I know it's late, but it's nice to have everybody out here in a nice warm day comparatively to what we've had last week. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, panelists. Drive safe.